Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second session of the Purdue University Winter Cluster Beekeeping Lunch and Learn series. For today, we're going to be discussing Beekeeping 101 with youth. My name is Alex Pettigrew, and I'll be the speaker and facilitator for this session. We have Ron Mayers here and also Darien Sharp here to discuss beekeeping, just beginner beekeeping, and how to be a beekeeping mentor. So just to get started, I want to remind everyone of the Winter Cluster. It's just a beekeeping series put on by Lace McCartney, myself, Sarah, and Dr. Harper. We wanted to organize this cluster as a safe, informal way for beekeepers to meet during this time, share with you resources, and also connect you with one another. And if you haven't used Zoom before, we would like you to remain muted while we are presenting. You are free to use the chat or the Q&A to ask questions throughout. For this session, there will also be some poll questions and general questions just to get a better understanding of your style as a beekeeper and different resources that you use or that you're interested in using. This session is going to be recorded. It is recorded, and we'll post them later. So to get started, we have an icebreaker question. And this is going to be our first poll. So what is the method you use most to test for Varroa mites? I want to give everybody a chance. If you haven't answered the poll yet, now's the time. Okay. We get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll now. So majority of attendees, and that's okay, this is a beginning session, don't test. The second majority use the sugar shake or the bottom board. So Ron, Darien, what do you use to test for Varroa mites?
I use, I assume I'm on. I use the alcohol wash method because it's simpler. And I'm very familiar with the Varroa mites, so I can identify them quite easily just using that method, and I believe it's faster. Okay, Darien. Darien's new.
I have not did it yet, but I kind of just go off of what Ron tells me. He knows it best.
So for this slide, I want to, before we get into the hive inspection video, because we did talk about mites, I want to have this video inspection play and Ron, Darien, just talk through what you went through here. But also, I want to let you introduce yourselves too before you get started, before I play the video. So how long have you been beekeeping and what got you interested in beekeeping?
Okay, I've been beekeeping for 30 years or so, maybe more or less. I was one of those beekeepers early on in the 80s and 90s who jumped into it. My first bees were 2 full hives, a little bit aggressive, and so I got a good indoctrination when I was delivering those to my house. It ended up after dark unloading them, and the bees were getting out, and I was getting introduced to bee stings left and right. That was my first nighttime work with honeybees. I've progressed somewhat since then, and I did so the first 15 years or so without any mentoring or without any community beekeeping meetings. I was on my own. I used Bee Culture magazine and other publications to learn what I learned. Then I'm not getting long here, am I?
You're fine.
Okay. Around 2000, when I retired from my regular job, I had the pleasure of working with Kathleen Pro, where we went out for days at a time and looked into many, many hives just for the purpose of locating foul brood in the area. And by searching and looking for the diseased foul brood, I had to become more familiar with all facts of bees, and that's where I really started my growth. And from then on, why I became acquainted with other beekeepers. Uh, by working with Kathleen and becoming one of her field inspectors that year, became acquainted with beekeepers all over the state, or all over my territory anyway, whom all have helped me along the way. Uh, and for the past 10 or 15 years, I've been able to mentor a lot of other people coming into beekeeping.
All right,
Darien?
they go now.
Yes.
All right, my name is Darien. I have been doing beekeeping for about 1 year now, but I have been learning about bees for the past 2 years. I started getting interested in bees from my school and also from the bee movie. I like the bee movie, and that made me want to become a beekeeper even more. And I've continued to learn from going to the bee meeting and experiencing what it's like and learning about more about Varroa mites and hive beetles and all the stuff I need to know about being a beekeeper.
Thank you. Thank you both for that introduction. So this is a hive inspection video from Darien's hive. The video is taken in his backyard and he wore a GoPro. I'm gonna play the video with no audio. So Darien and Ron, just please explain the process that you're going through in this video.
Go right ahead, Darien, and I'll interject. You need to unmute, Darien.
So right here, we're just taking off the outer cover and I laid it down. And then after that, we're gonna use the hive tool to open up the hive because the bees seal it with propolis and we have to get it off. And that's how that's how we open the hive. So this is called the inner cover that we just took off. And this is a 8-frame bee box. It's my first hive. Ron has gifted it to me, and I'm really appreciative of that. I go out there and sit with my bees a lot because they calm me down. Right now we are taking off a frame and we are looking for brood, which are baby bees. We're looking for pollen and nectar. Nectar is basically it's I call it like a juice that's gonna be turning it into honey, but it's not at the right part of being honey right now. Now on this, there is a good amount of brood. There is some honey at the top right of the frame, and that frame is looking good. So Ron is looking and seeing how that hive is doing because he knows more than me. So he's seeing stuff that I have not seen, like such as drone bees, which are boys, and trying to find the queen. Now, right here in the video, we was just talking about the hive.
To the new beekeepers, we want to know what the queen is doing and whether or not the queen is well, doing what she should be doing. So that's our main focus in entering the hive. Lots can be learned along the way, but the main purpose is to make sure your queen is healthy and live and laying eggs and doing exactly what she should be doing. If not, if the queen wasn't doing this, we would consider replacing her or perhaps correcting the problem in another way. I emphasized to Darien that he be very careful when pulling the frames out as he is there, because the focus is on the queen bee, more or less, from the time you enter the hive until you leave the hive. So it's always best to protect the queen, because if you are clumsy or a little careless in putting a frame back in, you can hurt the queen, harm the queen, and insects are, they're not like us. If you injure them in any way, if you break a wing or they break a leg, insects like the honeybees do not heal themselves. So if you injure the queen bee, she's a goner, and it might be a month or so before you realize that. What are you doing there, Darien?
Okay, there we go. So we have she is a young queen bee, and she's kind of hard to see. I've seen her for my first time with Ron. My mom has seen her, but I have not seen her, and this is the first time I really seen her in this video. Ron has pointed her out to me, but I just think it's cool that the queen bee could lay up to 2,000 eggs a day, and that's a lot of work. And um, the worker bees, all they do all day is basically just go out and collect pollen and bring it back for the hive, and they're basically working all day. And when it's cold, they're shaking their bodies to keep the queen bee warm. We're opening the bottom now. There is mite strips on the bottom, which they help to kill mites, and the bees basically go past the mite strips, and it gets the poison stuff on them so they could kill the mites. Now what Ron has in his hand it's like a piece of cloth, and the mites will get traced onto that piece of cloth, and they will not be able to escape from that cloth. And the bees, when they're done with it, they will chew it up and they will spit it out the front entrance of the hive. This hive inspection is probably gonna be the second to last hive inspection, because it is now getting colder, and we want them to bring in more honey and more pollen to get them through the winter.
As a new beekeeper, Darien started a little bit late, and his colony did not expand quite as rapidly as we wanted it to. But that is all in good, because for a new beekeeper, it's much easier to teach a new beekeeper from a smaller hive of bees, even a nuke box full of bees. It's so much easier, because then that first year they don't have to be working on a crowded frame, or where bees might be more aggressive than in a smaller hive of bees. Now, on this frame, you see more of the activity of the queen. You see sealed brood, and if we could see it, there's eggs and larvae down in. That's not videoed quite so clearly. But this queen is doing well, even though she's a month or so behind, and we'll have to really feed this hive through the winter for them to survive.
Okay, so I've been putting out some sugar water from them, and I use 2 cups of water to 4 cups of sugar, and they need that much. They need that much sugar, because in the winter you want the least amount of water to be in the hive, and you want the most amount of honey to be in the hive. And I'm also was giving them some pollen that I was sitting out in front of their hive with a bow, and they will go and get that pollen to help them also. And my dad has gotten me that I believe it was at Royal King. It's like a pollen substance. No, it's a substitute pollen, but I don't know how that's working, but yeah. Oh, and also when we go to Bastin's, we go and we get probiotics, and the probiotics is like yogurt, and it helps the bees to survive, and it gives them a little boost of survival.
We're closing the hive up now. We returned the apivar strips for the control of the Varroa mites. And Darien mentioned the small pieces of material that that was on the top of the frames. That was to trap the small hive beetle, which hasn't been a problem this summer. But we've got a few beetles in it, so that's good. They're at a very minimum level, so the hive is safe from the hive beetles. And the bricks on the top indicates we're all done.
Thank you so much for explaining the inspection video. We've gotten a few questions during the video, and Brock is gonna facilitate the discussion of the questions.
That was really great. Thank you. I've got a bunch of questions too. But we'll ask we'll go through these ones first. So there's one here from Joseph, and Joseph, Prulidge. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. But Joseph is asking, what mite strip did you use in the video? I presume in the video. And he's asking, what mite strip do you use with resistance being a problem? So what mite strips were you using?
We were using apivar strips. You saw them there in the video. And we'd put them in a couple weeks earlier, I believe. So they've got a couple more weeks to go before we remove them.
Okay.
There
was another one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we may change to a different treatment next time because in order to keep the Varroa mites from becoming resistant to any one chemical or pesticide, we'll go to another one, probably switch to apivar, not apivar, formic acid strips next time, which I believe are very effective.
There's a question here about oxalic acid. Do you use oxalic acid? If so, we can probably answer that question too.
I've used it in years past. I haven't introduced Darien to that yet.
Okay.
I have used oxalic acid.
Okay. So the question is then, when treating with vaporized oxalic acid, how many treatments and how many days apart?
How many treatments?
Yeah.
Yes, it's important to do a series of 3 treatments a week or so apart because the treatments do not kill the mites inside the cells. So as the bees emerge from the cells, it's important to treat 3 times in order to get all of the mites.
Okay. And then I'm just going to quickly, I've got one for Darien actually. So Darien, you were in the video. By the way, I love the GoPro. That's a really great way to film colony inspections, and I might steal that in the future. But you were using a Hive tool, a variant of a Hive tool. And I'm wondering, have you used different types of Hive tools, and is there one you prefer? There's a few different designs. Is there one that you prefer?
Yeah, I have used a different type of Hive tool. I don't know the exact name of it, but I do prefer the J hook because it helps me get the frame out easier. And the J hook is the one I was using in this video.
Yeah, you could definitely see that when you got it underneath the side of the frame there, that it popped it up really easily. So that's great. So this is a question from Susan Shepard in the Q&A. She's asking, where was the entrance to the hive? So she may have missed it, and she's curious, relative to where you're standing, where was the entrance?
The entrance was, if you see on the paused video right now, there's a little slot in the bottom of the hive, and it's in the front of the hive. And it's about half of an inch wide.
Okay. Oh, this is another one for Darien. Darien, you're really popular. This is from Megan Abram, and Megan is curious, if you want to answer this, how old are you, and how many kids your age are actually interested in doing beekeeping, if you know any?
I am 14. I just turned 14, but I don't know how many kids are doing it, but at my school there was a few on the bee team, but I was kind of like the only one really interested in it. So I would say maybe about a few are interested that are close to my age or not my age.
Okay. This is probably a general one to everyone from Kamala Wilkins. How long can I feed sugar water? I'm a new beekeeper and came to the season very late like Darien. When it gets too cold, what can I feed my bees? So Ron or Darien, whoever wants to take that one, just go for it.
Okay, we're coming up to that point now. I've often fed my bees uh, uh, sugar syrup 2-to-1 in the fall. However, I don't feed it unless the hive is really, really weak. I don't begin feeding sugar syrup until the blossoms have almost disappeared. And then I start feeding. And once the weather turns cold and starts freezing, I stop feeding the liquid sugar syrup and go to the bricks or the sugar in the dry candy form on top of the hive, so that we don't get a drip down into the hive and do harm to the bees during the winter.
Okay. There's one more. I think we'll just take this one more and then, actually there might be two more. So the first one is, and actually I was curious about this as well, Ron and Darien. Did you put a cloth over top for the for small hive beetle? Is that what that was?
Yes, it helps keep out the hive beetle.
Okay. So what? Oh, the questions vanished on me here. I guess, how long do you leave that on? What do you do with it? Have you had, have you had much success with it, or is it something you're trying out?
It's very effective. It's a cloth similar to the Swiffer pads that's used in the homes, but you can purchase these from Baston Honey Farm. They're quite reasonable. They're not expensive at all, and it's good to leave them in. You can leave them in indefinitely. It doesn't harm the bees at all. So you can put them in the springtime and kind of keep track of them throughout the summer. And as the beetles move in, they fly in. The bees will chase them around the hive and they'll get caught up in this material. And the bees will eventually chew this material and they'll pull that material down through the hive and pull it out the front of the hive with the beetles intact.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll give our panelists just a quick break and Alex can keep going here. There are more questions coming in, so we'll keep asking them, but let's just give them a little break here and Alex can take over from me.
Thank you, Brock, for facilitating that question discussion. So now that we've asked the panelists a few questions, and again, there'll be time for more questions throughout the presentation, I want to ask everyone, all the attendees, a question. So what do you look for in an inspection? We saw what Darien and Ron look for. So now I'm curious to hear, what do you look for? And I'm going to take notes here. What do you look for?
Oh, this is going to be fun. So essentially, if everyone just start typing in the chat what you look for in a hive during an inspection, and I'm going to madly get those to Alex. So type away into the chat box or the Q&A, whichever one you want. I have my eye on both of them here. So you start typing in and I'll start sending them to Alex. This could be kind of fun. Okay, Alex, we've got brood pattern, food reserves, lots of food, ensuring that the queen is laying. Oh, here they come. Wow. Looking for the queen, looking at wing shapes. Interesting. Honey, looking for honey. Looking for brood or eggs. Checking the health of the hive. You're keeping up. This is good. Type faster. Let's see if we can. Evidence of a healthy queen. Looking for, again, the queen. The queen seems to be a big one. We should almost put queen in bold there. Brood, food, pollen, queen, quantity of workers. I don't think we have quantity of workers just yet. Oh, and Jordan Lee says she likes to watch them dance just for fun. That's a great one. I do that too. Virginia says, looking for drones. That's a very important one for the reproductive health of our colonies. Oh wow, now everyone's going so fast for me too. This is good. Wax moth, Joseph just said he looks for evidence of wax moth. Brood pattern is another big one here that keeps coming up. Oh, we got that one, good. Checking for deformed wings.
We did wing.
Excellent. Oh, that must be the wing shape, yeah. Hive getting too full, so I guess that would be, we'll call that density. So we got some more for honey and capped honey. Virginia put in smell. I like that one too.
Smell?
I mean, I like smell. Yeah. I like that one. That would be
What's it supposed to smell like?
Well, we can talk about hive smells in maybe a minute here.
Okay.
Oh gosh, there's so many coming in. The smell of fall nectar. Yeah.
Thank you.
Capped honey. Don't think I've missed any. Signs of disease. I hope we'll put that under health. Health is a big one here. Certainly looking for mites and hive beetles, wax crumbs. Yeah, I think this really nailed it. There's actually, I did miss one, and that was organization of the colony. So I think the person was going for whether frames were, if you had empty frames in the middle of your box, you could move them to the side. Succession or swarm cells. Oh my gosh, we're getting lots. This is great. Okay, we're gonna give you another 30 seconds to type away if we've missed anything.
Can I make another column?
Movement in and out of the entry, the sound they make. Oh, this is good.
Movement.
Some people taste the honey. Okay, we'll call it there. You can, I'll let you catch up. Did we get swarm cells? We probably put queen cells in there just to be safe. Wow, that's fantastic.
Can we discuss swarm cells for other beginners that may not know? That's the difference between queen cell.
That's a great idea. And how about we take advantage of the two expert panelists we've got here. So Ron and Darien, what do you think about this list? And maybe at the end of your thoughts on this list, tell us the difference between differences among different types of queen cells. So I'm just going to mute myself and you two go.
Okay, I shall begin. All of these are very good. I would add small hive beetles to the top of the list. It depends on the season of the year, what month of the year or summer that we're looking into the hive as to what we would really be concerned about here. But all of these are very good. Might say swarm cells might come along in the springtime, queen cells. The difference between a swarm cell, according to the textbooks, the swarm cells will be formed down along near the bottom of the frames, but not always. Queen cells can appear any place on the side of the frame, wherever the queen has laid eggs. Queen cells on the mid part of the frame usually indicate that they're just replacing the old queen. But none of these are 100%. Everything is a variable in beekeeping. That's why one must gain his experience slowly, not be impatient. Experience will come, knowledge will come. The important thing is to start out somewhere and begin beekeeping. And the sooner you can get into open up a hive with your mentor or another experienced beekeeper, the faster you will learn. So start out with the book learning and the videos and everything, but when springtime rolls around, prepare yourself to receive the honeybees and the equipment and just jump right into it.
So Darien, how about you? Anything on this list that strikes you? Have you looked for all of these things when you're investigating the colonies, or what's been the most important finding for you so far?
I look for the brood pattern and if the queen is laying and the nectar that's in the pollen.
How about eggs? Are you doing a lot of egg searching?
Yeah, there's a lot of eggs. There's more eggs in my hive than honey.
think that's probably might be a good problem depending on your financial model. Yeah.
I try to emphasize to new beekeepers, it's very, very important that they learn right away everything they can learn about the queen. The queen is an egg-laying machine, and the just about all of the hive hinge around what the queen is doing. So the first thing for them to learn is to watch the queen, observe what the queen is doing, because we have many beekeepers that even have bees for years and years, and they never really examine their hive closely enough to keep track and answer the question, what is the queen doing? And that's one of the most important things about inspecting your hive. And new beekeepers, don't be alarmed by the complexity of the beehive, because as I said before, you will learn these things slowly, and you will not learn it all in the first year. Darien? Have you learned anything yet this year, Darien?
Yes, I've learned a lot. Because when I said I wanted to start beekeeping, I didn't know about the Varroa mites, and I didn't know how to treat the Varroa mites, and I knew it would come over time, and I knew if I got a good mentor, he would be able to tell me how to do it, and I would be able to learn, and I would be able to do it good in my future of being a beekeeper.
Darien, you remember the part about if you don't treat for the mites, you will not have bees. It's very important. Now there is variances to that, but basically speaking, if you don't treat and control the mites, do the testing and treat the mites, you will not be able to keep bees.
So I guess from that, we can transition, because here's another moment for questions. So if there's anything in the Q&A or the chat, if you have any questions based off what we just discussed. Later on in the presentation, we are going to discuss different beekeeping tools.
Alex, do you want me to read some out for you, or?
Yes, if there are some questions.
Okay. So there was one that came up. This is for both of the panelists. It was noted that, Darien, it looked like you were in a backyard in kind of a rural, an urban suburban area. So people were interested to know what's kind of the smallest size of an apiary that one can use. How much acreage should you be giving? And Darien, Ron, maybe you two want to talk a little bit about your experience with this one.
We have 1/4 of an acre, and I asked Ron how many hives we could have, and it was ranged between 2 and 3 hives.
Yeah, great.
Yes, Darien's first summer will perhaps be able to tell him how many bees can be kept in that area. It depends on his neighbors and other backyards around him, the abundance of sweet clover, the abundance of how many people treat their lawns and therefore kill bee forage. So one has to experiment in his own backyard as to about how many bees he could have.
So a related question just came up. Do you think, Darien, did you need to plant any pollinator flowers, or do you think you'll need to in the future?
Yes, but the bees, they don't really, they fly far to get flowers. So I do plant stuff, but that's kind of just for my own liking. And some bees around the neighborhood will come and collect the flowers, but the bees mostly like to fly far to get their, or not that far, but they like to fly to get their pollen.
Where do you think they're getting most of the pollen and nectar in your backyard from? Is there a big green space or anything like that?
I don't think they're getting that much pollen in my backyard because they want to fly. So we have like a kind of garden place by where we live, and there's a lot of flowers over there. So I'm assuming there's a lot of my bees over there or other people's bees.
Okay, great. Oh, there's a lot more questions popping up here. So, okay, this is a good one for either of our two panelists. What is the best way to locate the queen bee? Do you look for a large cluster? Are you looking for the biggest queen? This is from a completely new beekeeper. So what's the best way to find the queen?
I usually look for a cluster because the bees want to be around the queen and protect her. So normally when there's a big cluster, there's going to be a lot of bees, but sometimes there's clusters and they're just putting nectar. But when there's a lot of bees around them, it's sometimes a queen bee.
Is there a specific location in the colony that you might look?
Yes, in the middle, and then there's two brood boxes which you can harvest honey out of, and the worker bees. And
Oh, I think you just, the last sentence there, you froze a little bit. You just want to say the last sentence again?
yeah, there's two brood boxes which are for the baby bees and for the queen to lay bees.
Great, thank you. So we've got one here. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Can I comment on that? Yeah. What Darien said is all true, but sometimes when you're going to go in for the purpose of locating the queen, the first thing you'd want to not do is give them too much smoke, because the smoke drives the queen away, makes her run and hide. Second, examine the cluster using a method of pulling the frames on the outer part of the cluster and working one's way into the center of the cluster and then out the other side. The queen bee can appear any place on any frame that she finds suitable to lay eggs. So you look in the frames where the queen bee has been laying eggs, and that's where you'll find her. And if you don't find the queen bee, if you don't need to cite her, we simply look at what the queen bee is doing. If we see fresh eggs, when we see the egg that the queen has laid, we know she has been there within 3 days. So we can assume from that she's probably okay. And looking at the shape of how she's been laying the brood, the patterns, one can learn a lot from not finding the queen. If you don't, you can learn a lot even by not seeing the queen herself.
There's another one here. This is from Susan Shepard. It says, and I'm going to add a little bit to this one. So it says, I have a pretty shady backyard. Does the hive need to be in the sun, or does it matter? And I'm going to add on, maybe you want to discuss, Darien, how did you pick the spot in your backyard? How did you and Ron pick the spot? And does shade matter at all?
Well, our whole yard is sunny, so I just picked a good spot that will be, because we have a garage right in front of it. So I was trying to not let there be wind. So I was trying to block as much as wind off. So I figured putting it behind the garage would be something good so it could block the wind from coming.
Okay,
That's
so
good.
wind and sun.
The sun is good for the bees, and I put our whole entire yard is mostly sun, so we didn't really have an option to put it in the shade, which I wouldn't put it in the shade anyways, but our whole yard is basically sun.
Okay. This is also related to a little bit of hive management. It's from Quincy Sharp, and Quincy is asking, how do you keep your bees, how do you keep your hive hydrated?
Well, personally, my dad, which is the one commented, he always told me to put the water out, but when it's a wild beehive, they don't have water that we put out. They go find their own water, which I do put water out for them, but I don't ever really see them drinking it. But I just put it out there just because.
Okay. Let's see. So Toby Reynolds is curious if there are any fruit trees around you and if they help, if your bees are helping pollinate them in any way.
Yes, we do have fruit trees. I think my neighbor has an apple tree, and then I know she has a grape tree. Grapevine, I mean.
Okay. And then finally, this is from Carol, and I'm gonna add a little bit onto this one too, because this is related to a question I had. So Carol has neighbors that use a lawn service, and she's wondering, should I keep bees, or are there likely is there a chemical danger as a result of lawn treatments? So I'm going to add just one little piece to that, and that is, how do you talk to your neighbors about you keeping bees? So you have to be worried about chemicals, and then how do you talk to your neighbors about that, if you do?
So if they're just cutting the grass, you don't really have to worry about it, but you definitely don't want them to spray any chemicals. And you could talk to your neighbors. You could say you have a beehive, and you could say like, if you're wanting to spray, I have bees or something. And then you also have to ask them if they are any allergic to them, because if they're allergic and they get stung, then they wouldn't really like us to have beehives. But great thing for us, which is none of our neighbors are allergic, and they all know I have a beehive, and they all really support me having a beehive.
That's great. Are you giving them any honey at the end of the season?
Yes, I have given my neighbor some honey. It was an accidental harvest. We got 3 pounds, and I gave them a little sample. I've gave a lot of people for my incident harvest. I gave a lot of people some of my honey.
Great. So this is a question from Marvin, and Marvin is asking you, what do you, I guess I'm going to add to this one too. What kind of bees are you using? Where do you purchase them from? And what do you think of VSH, or Varroa sensitive hygiene bees?
I got my bees from Ron, and they are Italian bees. And what was the next question? What was the part that went on with it?
Yeah, so Marvin was also curious about a trait called Varroa sensitive hygiene. Now, if you're a new beekeeper, you may not have heard of this before. It's kind of it's a resistant trait to Varroa mites. So I guess you're using Italian stock. So it might not be, they probably don't express this trait, but Ron, have you ever used VSH stock before? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I made it a point to purchase VSH queens and introduce them into my apiary. When it was the talk of the town, so to speak, I hope it has done my bees good. I still have bees, so something like that must have helped. The main thing is treating for the mites, the VSH bees. They do resist bees, and they are more hygienic. However, we still must treat at this point.
Okay, thank you. We've got one more coming in, and then we'll probably pass it back again. So this is from Gabriella, and Gabriella is curious about, wants to know, for those who started with one hive, have you been able to keep it to one? If not, how do you manage more than one? So Darien, how many do you have right now, and how many do you want to have? Can you keep it to one, or do you need more?
I have one, but I would like more, because I really like being a beekeeper, and I think I would want to do this in the future.
So if someone wanted to keep it to one, any recommendations, or is that possible?
Yes, you could keep it to one. I watch YouTube videos, and some people only have one hive, and if you don't want to really sell your honey and you just want to keep it for yourself, You could just start with one and you can just go out there when you're ready to harvest and get enough honey for you and some for your family members.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll pass it. That's I think that's it for the Q&A right now, Alex. Back to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you everybody for sending in your questions. We'll talk about tools and then we'll have more time for questions that you can send in via the Q&A or the chat. So this is a video that was also made in Darien's backyard, and he's just going to talk to us about some of the tools he uses and recommends for new beekeepers.
All right, so now we're gonna go on to the things we use in the hive, such as the tools. So first we're gonna start out with the smoker. Now the smoker is to help make the bees think it's a fire and they're gonna try to gorge themselves on honey and not pay as much attention with you, and they pay attention with collecting honey. And the smoker works is by you put some type of stuff in there. It could be like dried up leaves or dried up lavender, stuff like that. You can light it on fire, and then you don't really want it on fire in there. You just kind of want it smoky. And then if you push this, some smoke will come out, and it will make the bees think that there's a fire. So second, we're gonna go on to the hive tool. Now this is really known for beekeepers. The hive tool is to open up the lid. Well, this part's to open up the lid because the bees seal up the hive with propolis, and it's kind of like bee glue. That's what I always say it as. But this hive tool is really, really helpful because without the hive tool, we wouldn't really be able to open the hive. Now, this part of the hive tool is, it's called the J hook, and it's to help you lift up a frame or get a frame out to look at it, to see if that frame has everything good on it and everything's looking good. Now, we're gonna go onto the bee brush. Now the bee brush is, you don't really use it that much, but you just kind of brush the bees off. If you don't want them in that spot, you just brush them off. And you won't have as much as bees because you'll brush them off. So now I think all beekeepers should have is a bee suit. It's really important if you don't like getting stung, which I don't like getting stung. So this is the bee gloves right here. They're just regular gloves that are sting proof, and if you get stung, it doesn't hurt, can't feel it, and these protect your hands. Now we're gonna go on to the bee suit. Now I don't know if you guys could see this because it's kind of big, but this is a full bee suit. This is called a bee veil right here, this hat part. There's jackets, there's types of bee suits. There's a jacket, just the jacket, and a veil. And then there's also just a veil, which is a hat. So yeah, I guess that's gonna be the end of this. We'll see you on the next part.
So now, since we discussed and had Darien show us the bee tools that he likes to use, I want to give a chance for those in participants to share what bee tools that you find are your favorite or have been most useful. So we're going to do the whiteboard again. Please use the chat.
I'm ready. All right. So what's your favorite tool? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Or what tools do you use? Oh gosh, here we go. Okay, so Virginia says the frame grabber. Oh, I've used those. Those are fun. Deb says the complete suit. Lays is a veil. I used to have a bee belt and I loved it.
Bee belt.
Bee belt. Yeah, I can put a link in the chat later.
It's like a utility belt.
Oh yeah, you feel like Batman. Yeah. Sugar water spray bottle.
Is that the
Hive
sugar
tool and smoker.
spray bottle?
Yeah, there you go. Hive tool, smoker. Someone else said belt hook for hanging tools. Oh yeah, Jordan says the queen catcher. I've used those. Those are fun too. Queen catcher. The J hook hive tool. Yeah, Sarah. We've got another one for frame holder. Oh, frame holder. Yeah, those are handy. Chris McGee, frame holder. Chris says his mule, which I'm not sure if that's an actual mule or if that's a tool, but we're putting in mule.
Should we just say his mule, not just any
Yeah,
mule? His
put
mule.
Chris's mule. Yeah, Chris with a K.
Chris with a
Oh, it's an ATV. Of course, it's an ATV. Sorry. A chair to sit on. There we go. Entrance reducer. Oh, these are all great. And now I feel like I need to make some purchases for the apiary. Okay, everyone, we'll give you another 30 seconds. We got feeders.
Oh, where did it go? Select feeders. I hear you. Well, then I'll start anew.
All righty. Oh, duct tape.
Duct tape. You gonna lock them in?
For holes, it says. So I imagine that helps with robbing and other, yeah.
Thank you.
Feeders, totes for holding frames, a funnel to pour feed. Yeah, that's a good one too. Very topical for the season as well as everyone feeds. Okay, I think that'll be it.
Ooh. Nice job. I like hearing what everybody uses. Okay, so we're gonna transition from this to a quick poll question. We discussed the tools. Now I'm interested to know, how did you get started with beekeeping, or have you got started with beekeeping yet? Okay, just a few more seconds. If you haven't voted, vote now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ending it. So majority of people have shared that they've started with nukes. And a lot of people also haven't started yet, and that's fine. So swarms, catching of swarms, starting with nukes or different packages are different ways to get started with bees. Darien, Ron, how did you get started? Everybody's muted.
I got it started from Ron. Someone at the bee meeting, I forgot his name, but he made me a nuke box, and Ron said he would put bees in it for me. So I started off with a nuke.
Have you caught a swarm yet? Have you seen a swarm?
I've seen a swarm before, but I've never caught one. I've just seen it like, just right in my mom's car, just going places. I've seen one. So I haven't physically caught a swarm yet.
Of course, as I said, I started many years ago with 2 full hives of bees. But through the years, I have purchased packages. I don't remember purchasing any nukes, which is a good way to go, but I have purchased packages just to supplement my apiary and to introduce new genes into the bees that I have going. I think I have bees that have been have survived every year for the last 10 or 15 years. So I've had to buy very few queen bees. I've raised my own queen bees. So as you get into beekeeping way down the road, you'll be able to do more things as you have more bees. But for the beginners, starting out with 1 or 2 swarms of bees, there's lots of possibilities in the backyard. One possibility would be just raising your own queen bees. Another possibility is raising a nuke and selling the nuke. So there's lots of things that you can do in your own backyard, even though that your apiary is not going to grow to 20 or 30 or hundreds of hives. You can still do it in your backyard and have a lot of fun with it and learn a lot with it. You can learn how the animal kingdom relates to the plant kingdom. That's a biggie for me, how everything works together in the world, and we must rely upon uh, our environment uh, to enjoy life. That's what it means to me.
Ron, there was a topical question that came up, and the question was, I don't own a hive, where can I get one?
You can get one. There's this store called Bastin's. It's known for, it has everything you need for being a beekeeper. It's in Knightstown, Indiana. That's where I've gotten almost all my stuff, all my honey jars, and I've gotten my mite strips from there, and I've gotten probiotics from there as well.
Another way is to join the Beekeepers of Indiana, actually subscribe and become a member. It doesn't cost that much. You'll receive a newsletter. And in the February, they operate a bee school, and whereby you can hook yourself up to vendors all over the state and all over the Midwest to obtain your bees and bee equipment.
Right, that's it for questions there.
So we're at the close. We're at our hour mark, and I want to thank Ron and Darien for being with us and answering all our questions. I'm sharing now just the rest of the series. We have fall gardening management for bees, and I saw in the chat that there was a question about gardening and creating a bee-safe environment. So that might be of interest. There's also going to be a session on honey extraction and processing, and then winterizing your colonies. And please, please take the time to complete this survey. It helps us develop more programming from you and just be able to provide you with information that you're interested in.
And just as Alex, awesome panel. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Darien. Just as we're about to finish here, there's some questions about recording. This has been recorded. We will be posting it. And what we'll do is send it out on the registrants list. So if you were here today, you will get a link. If you weren't here today, then you're not listening to me right now, but you'll get a link anyway. So thanks, everyone.